welcome everybody again to our 2022 Mayoral Forum. This is hosted by the Norman Chamber of Commerce in Norman next. I'm Scott Martin, President and CEO of the Chamber.
I'm Emily Benedict, Government Relations Chair for Norman next.
We're going to be co-hosting tonight's forum, so just to lay a few ground rules out. We don't have an amplification system in here, so you guys are all being very well behaved. Keep your noise down, and for candidates, just know you need to speak loudly so everybody here can hear you, and also those that are on Facebook Live can also hear you. Okay? So go over a few details and ground rules here. So each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to answer each question. A member of my team is going to be in the back. Erica, you want to show them that? When you have 15 seconds left, she's going to give you the yellow card. Now, when you've gone too long, which I'm sure somebody's going to do, you're going to get the red card. So just keep that in mind. And as best you can, please cut it off when you get the red card, and that'll be the end of your 2 minutes. And they'll be keeping track of time in the back. At the end, we're going to do a minute for closing statements. And so we're going to forego opening statements. In my experience, those are just a bunch of fluff. So we're going to get rid of that and not worry about opening statements, okay? And then, so we're going to hop right into these questions. We have about 9 questions to get through. All 5 candidates are here. And let me take a moment to introduce to you our 5 candidates that are with us here. And is this your last forum before the election?
Yeah.
Okay, well this is exciting. We're honored then to be the last mayoral forum for this site.
There's one on the 27th too for the
Okay. What is it called? With us today is Mayor Breea Clark, candidate Mary Heikkila, candidate Nicole Kish, candidate A. Stephenson-Leuk, and candidate Bob Thompson. Please help me thank each of them for being here tonight. We're going to get right into these questions. Emily's got the first question, and what we're going to do, we'll just go down the row, and then we're going to keep just rotating so everybody gets a chance to lead off each time as we go through the site questions.
Well, thank you. So let's start with Mayor Clark. We'll go first. What do you believe is the biggest issue facing our community today, and what are your plans to address it?
Thank you for that question. I think we have many issues facing our community today. One that I'm very passionate about is addressing homelessness and affordable housing. We've all seen a rise in that in our community, and I'm very proud of the steps that our community has taken in terms of using our federal dollars to actually build housing. We have people with Section 8 housing vouchers and nowhere to put them, so that's going to be, I think, key to that. I think another issue that's very important to our community is the local economy. We're the only state in the nation that ties cities to sales tax the way that we do, so we're very much driven to compete for that. I'm very proud that in the last 7 of the 8 months we've had historic income tax revenue, which is, sales tax revenue, which is fantastic. And use tax continues to go up. But there's got to be more than that. You know, besides from changing that at the state capitol, which is something I would dare to dream, we've got to do better in other ways. So encourage economic development with small business and entrepreneurship, which I'm also glad that we plan to leverage at least $1 million of our ARPA funds towards that. Currently working with the Economic Development Advisory Board, led by Chuck Thompson, who's on some great solutions on how to best stretch those federal dollars. So the local economy is always going to be huge because, again, we have to use sales tax to basically support our general funds for basic services. So I'm excited to work on those issues. I think infrastructure is incredibly important. Not only finishing a lot of the road projects that you see right now, but also looking at our bridges. We have a very small annual fund that was put into it, and it's not enough. So I'm excited to see if we can perhaps address it the way we have with the street maintenance bond. We've had 4 bridges fail in the last 5 years, so we've got to do better with that. Lots of issues facing our community, but I love that Norman isn't afraid of a good challenge. We've got a great team addressing these issues now.
Thank you.
I would.
There are actually two issues that I see that are main on topics. First off would be homelessness. I don't believe in warehousing people. I think that we ought to be able to take those persons that want to have, that need services, that could use all kinds of things. We need to be able to push them through a system, and that's been tried. I just think it needs more work. Those persons that are doing harm to us, similar to what's happened out at the end of Main Street this last week, those kinds of things. We shouldn't have shootings inside Norton. I think all of us would agree with that. We don't want that. Those kind of persons, that's a bad statement. Persons who would do us harm, we need to encourage to go elsewhere, however that works. The other part that really needs help, as far as I'm concerned, is dialogue. As a city and as individuals, we seem to be so polarized. We cannot talk with each other. We cannot get ideas across to each other because we sit in our camps. I would like to be a person that tries to bring these groups together so that we can get the best idea for Norman, not necessarily centered on a political philosophy or anything else, but something that is good for Norman. And I'd like to be able to do that through committees. I'd like to be able to do that through work groups. It seems that whatever we do, we work better as a group, not as individuals. Thank you.
So I have been, number one, always saying that we need to do our police department right. We need to get our public safety back in check in the city, because what's happening here is absolutely abhorrent. Mayor Clark has defunded our police department. She did this was her decision, and we're paying for it, and we're paying dearly for it. We're paying for it, especially in our small businesses. I just got a phone call today from a small business owner on Main Street, and he said, what in the heck are we doing? What can be done? What are you gonna do? And I said, well, I'm running for office, so I'm trying to do one thing about this. But we need to give our police department the funds and the manning that they deserve, because right now, it is absolutely awful out there. And the shooting that occurred last week in our warming shelter was also very disheartening. And this is not gonna get any better, people. This is just gonna get worse. We have to tackle our public safety issue. That is number one. Attacking that and being able to deal with our homeless issue and dealing with the criminal aspect of that, that's gonna follow. Once you get your public safety under control, you will attract businesses. That's where Governor Stitt comes in. That's why he endorsed me. We need to get our people back into business here, and people who want to come back here and invest money here, because you can't increase your sales tax revenue or anything else for that matter, any revenue, if you aren't business friendly. And businesses are not going to come here if their employees aren't safe or the people who want to use their business isn't safe. Thank you.
I like Dr. Kish back to blue. I started the FOP forum on January 7, 2022 about two seemingly homeless women yelling at each other on Christmas Day. It was pretty dark, so I was out for a walk. Woman on the corner of Main and Porter yelled to another homeless woman, "Got any weed?" The other homeless woman said, "No, I spoke by this morning. There's a man selling it over on the Street." Fast forward to January 20th, 2022, during the League of Women Voters Forum at City Council. A shooting on the 300 block of East Comanche resulted in the death of one person and 2 others injured. So I agree with Dr. Kish that we need back to blue. Then also, Mayor Clark has proposed, or not Mayor Clark, the proposal presented to the City Council ground about homeless, low-income housing and single-room occupancy initiative on Griffin Memorial State grounds for Section 8 housing, as Dallas and many cities refer to as low-income projects. The purchase price must reflect the serious asbestos issues in the other buildings. It appeared in 2019 that the state state wanted to dump responsibility for the lack of dormant, because many of the other structures have asbestos, like the other chapel. Jeff Mewes mentioned the asbestos issue when I asked him, why the once beautifully maintained and landscaped grounds now in disrepair? Asbestos is part of the city project at the closed central library at Great Western installed, and the price tag of the project soared to an additional $1 million for asbestos remediation. As far as the homeless, okay, that's fine.
Mr. Thompson.
As you listen to the candidates throughout the course of this election, I think you can recognize that we have a lot of agreement about what our main issues are. And we're talking to you here day to day. Issues like homelessness and the funding of the police are definitely in the conversation, the public conversation. Nobody's going to choose a topic that we don't all agree is an important issue. But I think what we have in our community right now is a level of division that we haven't experienced in a long time, uncharacteristic of Norman to be so divided that we can't seem to function, that we can't seem to recognize where our interests actually converge and where we can actually help each other accomplish the things that we need to as a community. I think that this has come about because of a very wrong-headed approach to the office of mayor, a misunderstanding that it's an ideological platform and that it's a means to power instead of a means to cooperation. We've been doing that for the last 15 or better years, and I think that's the number one issue we face is our ability to recognize that the charter calls for us to be nonpartisan, recognize the importance of nonpartisanship in solving our problems, facing our challenges, setting our agendas, setting our priorities for the future. I do believe that I'm the only candidate that has a plan for how to establish that and to recognize that as pivotal to solving all of the important issues that we face, recognizing that the strength of our community lies in our unity, not our division.
Thank you. For our next question, Larry, we're going to begin with you. What should the city council do to boost economic development and quality job creation and retention?
Today, I got to participate in a meeting with a team of people called the Industrial Authority of Cleveland County. I'm a trustee of that, and wherever Jim is, I'm looking for it, and that's why I'm searching across the county. We are going to build an arena up on UNP. We are starting on the process tomorrow. We're going to hire the people that are going to look at the ground. We're going to hire the people that are going to manage it. We are going to work with the university. We'll work with the city. We'll do everything that we can do to be able to put that in. What that is for me is a realization of a dream. We need to bring people here to spend their money and to do fun things and to just live life to the most. We talk about Lawrence will tell me to be talking about the way that we select areas to put these in. That area is already set up. We look at the way that we want to fund things. What that means to me personally, to answer your question, Scott, is to sit down and bring businesses here that we can have. To have competition so that those businesses can work at the max that they can and bring in the max amount of sales revenue that we can find and get them in. There will be people that want to move to Norman to build houses, and those houses become revenue generators because we do most of the stuff on Amazon anymore. We do a lot of things that we didn't do prior to COVID. You can sit there and buy anything from any place in the world over a computer. As we're doing that, we're bringing in revenues. We're doing the things that we can. Again, I go back and work on homelessness. How can we have businesses that work well with persons, homeless persons in the street? Thank you.
Cool.
So I would, again, like to see the public safety issue addressed. We have to do that first, because if you address that first, everything else will fall into place. I mean, that's just how it is. If you don't have a safe city, people will not come here. Again, I want public-private partnerships to work in the city. And we have an amazing Chamber of Commerce here, and I don't think that they get utilized enough by the local businesses. I gotta tell you, I wasn't ever a member of the Chamber of Commerce up until last year, when I was at an after-hours meeting and somebody asked me to be in Chamber. I thought, oh my God, what a great idea. But we need to be better about that. We need to build those partnerships, and we need to improve our business reputation. We have the most horrible reputation in the state. Absolutely horrible, because of our current city council, because of our current mayor, what you've done to the city. And so we need to work on that, improve that, to get people together, get people working together. And I really need some affordable housing in this city. We need to make sure that the housing prices stop going up and out of reach of people who want to live here and be here. So we need to allow our developers to come in and do it, and need to get rid of all of the red tape so they can actually build some affordable houses. And we need to make sure that our city council understands that. And they want other people here, and they give people a reason to count this.
Amy, same question to you.
Ward 4 has become the trash can of Norman. The throwaway people is often the homeless are referred to. My husband calls the homeless urban outdoors people. My neighbors say the homeless flood into Norman via Greyhound bus stop nearby Acres and North Quarter. The businesses on Main Street have found people sleeping in front of their stores. They go out and carry out the trash, and they're accosted by homeless people who are aggressive with them. They have to walk the female employees to the car. That's how dangerous it gets under them. And as you heard, there's a shooting on January 20th. I don't know that was homeless related, it's by the open food cupboard. It's where the lady Christmas Day, said that a man was selling weed over there. I don't know. But when I was growing up at Norman, you would have never heard of anyone yelling at the top of their lungs across the way. I smoked my weed this morning. There's a man over on Comanche if he wants some. So, I mean, you would have never heard that when I grew up. And I don't even know what's happened in Norman. It's overbuilt. It's exceeded its water supply. And then talking about building more. So, we need to get realistic, focus on our essential needs. And if possible, I heard you brought to vote, we could reallocate the money to the Norman Forum. All these tie in this kind of things are nice. Norman needs to focus on the essential needs of Norman. The $230,000 filter from the library is pretentious. It would have bought the 6 police cars in Norman Police.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bob?
Well, we need economic development in our community to make sure that we stay competitive and viable. In Oklahoma, we depend on sales tax for the majority of our revenues for our cities. So that leaves us in a position where we need to make sure that we're strong in that regard. But we also need to focus on obtaining quality jobs from our economic development efforts. Emmy is probably the crown jewel in our economic development efforts at least in the last 10 or 15 years. And I'd like to see that be our touchstone for measuring our success going forward, looking for successes like that to establish Norman not just as a viable economic community, but also as a community that provides good jobs and good living. As far as Mr. Heikkila's reference to an arena, I think that's a question that ought to be left to the people. And that any time that we invest our public dollars in private concerns, I think we owe it to our public to guarantee that the outcomes they see are going to be measurable, recognizable outcomes, things that we wouldn't otherwise have without the investment of those dollars. Very important when you use public money for private concerns to be able to justify it in terms of the common good. We have to maintain the trust of the community that our serious approach to economic development includes direct benefits for the people that already live here, strength for the businesses that are already here, and strength for the people who want to start businesses here.
Thank you. So I actually had the opportunity to serve on the Economic Development Strategic Planning Committee with the Chamber of Commerce since 2018 as a council member. I believe I was actually one that coined Team Norman. So excited to see that happen. And I know that we're still working on that plan, and it's been great to see the Chamber visit Norman and NEDC align. But speaking of NEDC, all of the 4 partners only contribute $250,000 to their budget. We're the 3rd largest city in the state of Oklahoma. We need to be putting more money into NEDC. I think that Lawrence, our new executive director, has done a great job. We actually have 2 upcoming announcements, if they haven't been announced already, of companies that have come to Norman and will provide high-paying quality jobs. So we're already seeing the fruits of his efforts, which I'm grateful for. I also think that according to that plan that came out from Market Street, we need to really tap into our weather and radar industry. We are home to the National Weather Center. We need to be leveraging that more. We also provide top talent at the University of Oklahoma. So there's ways to, I think, keep that talent and retain companies here to tap into that industry because of our cost of living here. We've seen the same thing with meteorology. We've seen that jobs can be done anywhere in the world now. So why not attract them here because of the talent and the National Weather Center that we have. I also think that it's important to look at not just the big weather radar industries, but also aviation. Aviation is growing. I think that the Norman Public School Aviation Academy in collaboration with OU and more Norman Technology Center is going to be a game changer. But then you have things like Factory Obscura, which are having an eye on Norman right now on Gray Street. These are things that are going to provide the entertainment that we seek, but also provide quality jobs while pouring back into the sales tax revenue. So we've got the tools in place. I think we need to better support them and continue the successes that we've seen over the last couple years. Thank you.
Well, that leads me to my next question. Norman Next, if you don't know, is a group, membership group of young professionals here in Norman. We have a word of the year, and that is momentum. We've gained quite a bit of new membership, and our next question is for them. Many of today's jobs are not static, and the workplace is changing. Young professionals have choices where they can work and build a life. What quality of life initiatives do you plan to pursue so that Norman retains and attracts new talent?
I again would like to see better partnerships between the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and what's going on, the people who want to come here. But when you're a young person, you want a nice place to live and you want affordable places to live. And right now, we have student housing, which is down by the campus, and it's not really where a lot of the younger professionals want to live. The housing developments that we have in Norman are pretty expensive and pretty hard for young professionals to afford. And we don't have a really great place for people to kind of walk around and be. And we can't walk around downtown Norman because of the homeless issue and because of the crime. So we need to fix that first. Because I would like to be able to walk around the main street of Norman and visit some of the art things and some of the other things. But we haven't been able to do that in the last year because of our issues with public safety and homelessness. So we've got to address that. Young people aren't going to stay here. They're not going to come here if we don't address all of these issues, the affordability of housing and just housing in general, and then fun things for people to do. I mean, you can't get restaurants to come here or anybody to build here because, again, we have a horrible business reputation. We're not giving anybody incentives to be here and start a business here, and it's time to change them.
Dr. Kish is correct. The week after Christmas, I did 3 blocks from downtown, east downtown, and his graduate. So I went for a walk, and I went up by next to Rusty Custom, our property. And someone had defecated next to Rusty Custom. Does that mean make even one go and have a custom? I don't think so. And this is one of the complaints the businesses on this main farm. My neighbor, who lives a block west of me, she woke up with a homeless person sleeping on her porch. She also saw one urinating on her bushes, and then 3 others were hiding in her yard that had been left alone in the car. When you drove by the southwest corner of Peters and Dawes, you will see the rod on the fence she put up for her safety. The homeless substance abusers target the disabled and elderly in Norman. A homeless man from Texas, I may have to go another time to share this. He walked in on my brother, we were on the phone, and had a knife to his throat. I didn't know why my brother got quiet. And I said, "Are you okay? What's going on?" So the homeless man said, "If you call the," he didn't realize I was on the phone, that my brother had me on speakerphone. He said, "If you call the police, I'll come after you next." That homeless man, substance abuser that used his government money to drink and gamble at Riverwood Casino, was denied parole by 2021. Thank you.
I've been in business here in Norman for 36 years, and I've been a member of the Chamber of Commerce for a long time. I flatly disagree that Norman is a horrible place to do business. If it were, that wouldn't reflect very well on me staying. I think the things that we have in front of us that are opportunities to attract young people are, some of them are already in place. Norman Forward's in place, and in spite of the fact that we don't have as adequate funding as we'd like to have, we still have the opportunity to complete some of those projects with the same excellence that we completed our library. We have the opportunity to succeed at that and ask the community to support us in the continuation of succeeding at more of the projects that were listed in the Norman Forward plan. I think that's one of the fundamental things that we need to do to keep our community current for young people. We also have a tremendous arts and music scene here, and I'd love to see our economic development actually focus on encouraging and funding the arts and music community in a way that allows local, especially local musicians that are quite often asked to ply their trade for very little money, to make this a place where musicians could come and expect to make a good living. I think that would be good for our community and good for our forward motion. I'd like to see us develop our inner area, our core area in districts, the way Oklahoma City has, and they recognize the requirement that young people have to have a place where they live, they work, they play. And all we have to do is recognize some of the successes that are around us and try to emulate them. See if we can go forward.
Thank you.
All right. Well, first of all, proud member of Norman next, at least for another year and a few months. That's right. And I joined Dash almost 10 years ago, and it was one of the greatest tools I used to connect to the business community. When it comes to retaining talent, I am that story. I came to the University of Oklahoma College of Law and stayed. I bought my first home here, have a couple of Okie babies that think red dirt is normal, and have clearly invested in my community. So I know what it's like to be, attracted to OU and then retained. So I think it's important to tap into the resource that is the University of Oklahoma. We had a conversation about creating an internship program similar to Intern OKC, I think is what it's called. We were looking at Intern Norman. Let's get these young people working in our community, building roots and falling in love with it. That's exactly what happened with me. So that's one aspect of it. I do think that we need a combination of districts and different housing options. I love what we have in University North Park with Tara. I think that Dr. Kish is spot on that we've got student housing and we've got single family homes. So often I hear the story, well, I left Norman when I graduated, but I came back to raise kids. We hear it all the time, and I'm glad they came back. I think that speaks so highly of our community and the educational opportunities and the quality of life initiatives that we have for families. But we do need more for young people. So I'm excited to see what we can do in the University North Park area. We're clearly not done with that yet. I do think we need the districts. I mean, we know that with these festivals, people flock to Norman. Let's keep doing what we're good at. So I'm excited to see that continue. I think in terms of entertainment options, things like Factory Obscure are going to be huge. So often I hear OU students say, oh, I'm going to Oklahoma City. We got to stop that. We need to build things where not only do they stay here, they spend their money here, which is going to be real important.
I'm one of those that stayed as well. A long time ago, we came to finish school and raised our family. We found in Norman a wonderful mix of fun things to do, fun things to eat, wonderful things that had to do with theater and stuff. I'm a big fan of Factory Obscure. I just so would love to see it. Lawrence would probably talk about this as placemaking and districts, however we want to do it. We can use whatever terminology we want. But I think that's absolutely essential in what we do. And putting out different kind of housing that is for young families or for single persons that's affordable, is wonderful. All of those kinds of things have to be worked together. That's going to take all of our voices together to work on how we want Norman to look. If I look at the permit process, ours is so much different than Moore's. Moore's is so much easier to do a project. If you go through their process, they're looking to take obstacles and get rid of them for you. What are those things we need to do with our permitting process, with our fee process, with all these other kinds of things that we can remove to make us competitive with our nearest neighbor? If we look at Norman in itself, Norman is not an island. Norman is part of a group of cities. And we have to look at those persons as brotherly kind of competition. How do we take their customers away from them and get them to us? It's these kind of ideas that want to be here. That Market Street report had the demographic, I believe, is from 25 to 44, leaving Norman almost as quickly as it could. That's exactly the group that we need to retain, and there any kind of thing that's on to their interest is to our interest. We need to be able to do that. Sorry.
Thank you. A, we're going to start with you on this question. In the summer of 2020, our city council voted to reduce 9 police positions. We currently are staffed at 162 officers, authorized at 171 officers, and the voters have twice approved the public safety sales tax to achieve a total of 189 officers. How do you propose to get us to a fully staffed department as approved by the voters of the city of Norman?
I wouldn't think that 165,000. I would get involved in a Norman Ford project that has overpromised and under-delivered. A lady told me at the MOP board. I would bring to vote to reallocate the Norman Ford funds to the essential needs of Norman. Now, people who want to live in a big city, I suggest you go live in one. People come to Norman for the charm of Norman. If people are leaving quickly, it's probably because of the horrible homeless issues here. When we first moved here, on May 19th, there was an explosion at Andrews Park bathroom. I interviewed the homeless and was told a crack dealer was trying to run him off because he wanted to sell drugs. Homeless are sleeping in Andrews Park Gazebo and Pavilion and the park on the southeast corner of Peterson Acres and by the businesses. That explosion was so loud at first I thought our house exploded. There are still deep scratch marks in our back door from my panic calling again. Wardport has become the trash can of Norman for throwaway people as often homeless are referred to. A lot of things I hear being talked about on the west side. Well, people on the east side matter too, just like Larry said. There's a fire department that needs to be updated and improved so the firemen have a building that's fit to be in, equipment things. Now, Mayor Clark talked about bringing meteorologists here. My niece's husband's a graduate of meteorology. He said Norman's too liberal.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
In 2007 and 2008, I helped to author and then pass the first public safety sales tax. And one of the things that I'm most proud about in that sales tax is that it came with an actual plan that had a price tag for each of the components of the sales tax. That plan was mentioned in the ballot language, so it became incumbent on the city to execute that plan just as part of the sales tax referred to it. Our second iteration of the public safety sales tax was much sloppier than that. It didn't come with that specificity, and I think that's one of the things that we're experiencing right now is that lack of commitment to the public in that iteration of the sales tax has left us wanting. I do think that we're still duty bound to provide the expectations that tax had with it. So the funding of the 189 positions is still something that I think the public expects from us. Beyond that, the needs of the police department are going to grow just like the needs of every other department in the city. As we experience the growth that we so desire, we can expect a growth in the needs for city services, from water and sewer, parks and recreation, economic development, all the way through to public safety. And the public has to understand that as those needs grow, they don't necessarily grow dollar for dollar in step with our economic growth. There can be times when we have to come back and say we have needs that are going to require us as a community to step up and increase our taxes to provide for ourselves those services and the level of service, the quality of goods and services that we desire in our community. That'll be on us to provide.
Well, I appreciate this question because obviously it is a hot button issue. I believe the transcript had an article out, I think it was Friday, that mentioned everyone's comments about police funding. And I had mentioned in the League of Women Voters Forum, but not the transcript forum, that I fully support making sure that we have the funding that our police department needs to fully staff the new department. The new department, the Community Services and Outreach Bureau, is huge. I think it's going to be a game changer for repairing relationships with our police department. So they plan to, again, build relationships with residents, strengthen neighborhoods, and be more intentional in how they police. So I was excited to see this evolution of the police department. Now, I think even completely funded and then some, we also have another problem that we need to address, which is recruiting. Around the nation, police departments are having a hard time finding people to fill the spots. And I'm very proud that Norman Police Department has very high standards. So I think we need to be very strategic in how and where we recruit to make sure we have quality candidates. And I've spoken to the police department about this. When they presented the new Community Services Outreach Bureau to the Mayor's Roundtable, I think it was October 1st, I told them right then I'd be happy to fully fund any staffing needs that they had. I mentioned again at the Chamber Board of Directors meeting soon after. So it's not been a campaign issue for me because it's a leadership issue right now that I'm willing to address if the opportunity presented itself. So I'm excited to see that move forward, but again, even if we had all the money in the world with that, we still have to find quality candidates that meet our standards. So making sure that we assist our fire department and our police department, fire department's hiring right now, is going to be crucial in making sure we maintain the reputation and the high level of service that we have in NPD.
One of the major things, as the mayor says, is recruiting. We have to take, one of the things I think that is a problem with that is that firefighters and police officers are paid 8 to 9% less in Norman than they are in surrounding cities. We need to get at least up to that level, if not more. One of the things that we also would like to see is not 189 police officers, but 201 police officers, 210 firefighters. The reason for that is Ward 5. We don't have enough coverage in Ward 5. We need 2 more fire stations out there. We need to move Fire Station 5 into a better location that has good water and good living conditions. We need to be able to sit down and pay these persons correctly. I personally would like to see some of those firefighters be paramedics, so we have paramedic trucks that go out to be of service to those persons in Ward 5, because it takes long enough for an ambulance to get out. It should be, the ideal would be that people in Ward 5 get the same kind of treatment that they do that people in Ward 3 do. I don't know if that's achievable in our time. Obviously, working to larger numbers of police officers is going to take time. There's no instant way of being able to get those police officers and have good police officers. I agree with anybody who wants the best police force. We did have that, I thought. Many of the chiefs of police in this area have come from our police force. Sheriffs have come from our police force. These are good men that are well trained and know what they're doing. I don't know if I've run out of time. Oh, there's her. I couldn't find it.
Thank you, Nicole.
I had a patient come in today, and her son is a very well-trained very well-trained in the fire department. And he's not in Norman, but he's been asked to come here. And people told him, literally told him, don't come to Norman. The leadership is horrible here. There is a hostile work environment in the city. And it's because of what's occurred in the city with the defunding of the police department and that kind of thing. And so that hurt my heart to hear that. We absolutely have to work harder on our recruitment, because you can tell people all day long to come here, but you've got to improve the work environment. If I had a hostile work environment in my practice, I wouldn't have any staff left. I wouldn't. And money does talk. It absolutely does. So we need retention bonuses. We want to keep the good officers we have here. We want to keep them here. And we want to actually reward them for that. And then sign-on bonuses for the people who want to come here. Maybe there's other cities who they aren't funding to their police department. Maybe we should reach out to them. We also have an asset forfeiture account that's just sitting there. Maybe we use that to get better police officers here, to get more of them here, to get them here. And I'm just talking not just police officers, but public safety in general, the fire department and everybody else. We all need that. This town needs it. We are in dire need of good police officers and good training here. And I think it's time to address that and address it now.
All right. What is your position on recruiting regional draw retail businesses in Norman? Bob, we'll start with you.
Well, I'll go back to my original remarks on economic development. When we're trying to create things that are a draw, I think that the advent or the use of districts for us to grow our core area is a big component of that. As far as drawing from around the area, are you talking about drawing businesses, or are you talking about drawing sales from around the area? I think that we have business people here. I think we have plenty of businesses here that can benefit from the investment of economic development dollars and the creation of districts where we actually have a live, work, and play environment. people right now go to Oklahoma City to those districts, and I think that if we create districts for Norman, we can have the same sort of impact here, drawing people from around our region.
And so you said the retail businesses, correct? Honestly, I think we should try to get away from retail as much as we can, even though we're tied to sales tax, by perhaps looking at experiential things, again, like Factory Obscura or sporting events, which I'm so excited for our dive into sports tourism with the help of the Norman Forward projects. The Young Family Athletic Center is going to be so helpful in getting basketball and volleyball tournaments. I think we're going to need a Norman Forward too to get the swim complex that we need to get swim tournaments. But look at our investments in Griffin in terms of soccer. We've also got Reeves Park with baseball and softball. And so I'm excited to see what happens with the recent different tournaments that Visit Norman has locked down, including a youth baseball tournament, the beep baseball, which sounds fascinating, baseball for people that are blind. And then we know that the name of Trae Young will bring some pretty nice basketball tournaments once that's completed. So again, I think if we focus, retail is going to be important, but with online shopping, that can't be our one goal. I think it needs to be a lot more experiential, and then we need to lean into what we've got with the sports tourism. I know that we're working on a unique project at Saxon Park that will work with our tribes, and I don't think I can talk too much about that yet. But that'll be neat as well, and that's again tourist related. That'll bring people here, stay in our hotels, or eat at our restaurants and shop at our stores. And I think that's more of the focus we need to look at, as opposed to leaning on retail the way we always have. Because as the market continues to change and people continue to shop online, and until we fully close that loophole to collect that sales tax, I just don't think that's where our focus needs to be.
In retail shops of any sort, I'm a fan of retail. I like to be able to go to a store and try on a pair of shoes, or try that, make sure that it fits correctly. It's just, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but it works. The things that I like about retail are, first off, they give jobs for our college kids. They give jobs for high school kids. They give them experience in business management and in finance and all kinds of other things. They're training jobs for somebody. As we sit and look at that, again, going back to the permitting process, the things that we have working against us to build buildings and how we do that. How friendly are we going to be to add things in? Going back to the homeless idea, how do we make sure that those beautiful areas that we make that are destination parks, et cetera, are wonderful, that you can walk around and you can leave a child there for a second as you're watching, that they can play and be safe and everything's good. It's all of those kinds of things, the wonderful things that we can do. I think arts are amazing. I keep going back to a park that I went to in Oslo, Norway. And as we walked around the park, there were statues that were sitting there that were by Norwegian artists. And I just thought it was just so beautiful the way that everything was put together. And it was a serene 5 to 10 acre park, whatever hectares that goes out there. And it was just fun to go to. It was a relaxing place. Why can't we do that? I don't see any reason why we can't. And there are artists in this town. There are wonderful people. I would like to see them be local artists. And my time's up. Thank you.
As somebody who had my practice was in Cedar Mall. It was in there, I was in there for 22 years. Next month would have been 23 for me. And it is unfortunate that we are seeing this retail environment all over the country, shoot, all over the world, go away. But that's because online things are changing the game, it's changing everything. I'd like to see our city council be more friendly to the new businesses that want to be here. After the treatment that occurred to Costco, people hear about that and say, forget it, I'm not going there. And so I definitely would like to see some new ideas in that. When I was in Spain a couple of years ago, they had a huge mall there, and instead of it just all retail, they had like awesome restaurants in there. Again, it was all indoors, and amazing, amazing experience. I mean, I could have just spent all day just eating at every different little restaurant. It was great. They had some retail stuff there, some clothing, but really it was a great idea. And listen, Chamber of Commerce, this is a beautiful building. oh my God, I can't believe this, I had no idea this was here. And so showing new businesses that want to come here, an environment like this, and they go, oh my gosh, they really do want to do something here in Norman, by just bringing them here and just inviting them and showing them this. I mean, my heart is just like so full. When I walked in here, I was just absolutely blown away. So nicely done on that, by the way. I wish there was more solution. I wish there was more of a solution retail-wise. But I think we should not just go retail. There's other things that we can do. We can get restaurants here. We can get local people to build restaurants and give them their art. They're artists too. Restaurants are art, that's art. And I think that needs to be done as well. People will come for experiences, and I really would like to be a part of that.
I was enjoying listening to everybody else. I agree with Dr. Kish about because of the online shopping, sadly, retail's not going to be as viable a problem. And that's the fact. And I was going to say that I was so busy to be listening, I lost my place. In all honesty, I probably won't get maybe any votes, maybe 2. My husband's going to vote for me. I was talking to my neighbor, and she said, I heard you're running for mayor. I'm for Bob. Well, I was shocked. I thought she was for Breea. So, I said, well, listen, if I wasn't running, maybe I'd be for Bob too, because that's the blue. So, everywhere I go, I work for Bob. I told my husband, if you're going to vote for Bob, it's okay. Bob's a good guy. Larry's a good guy. Dr. Kish is excellent person. Breea, there's just something, the big things we don't agree on. So, also I'd say, like, whatever you do to vote for, since I'm probably just going to get 2. Dr. Kish is real far right, try to support her. Larry's about moderate right, and then we're all
Thank
so, that's okay, it's been a wonderful experience, thank you very much. Is my comment?
Yes.
Breea, this next question is for you. I'm going to begin here and go down the road. So last year, the council discussed establishing a business registration fee. And this year, even tomorrow night, they're discussing increasing utility connection fees. What are your thoughts on these fees and your stance in general on business fees?
Okay. So the business registration fee was something I had heard from one of my mayor's networks. And it's actually, I think Wichita, my hometown, they do it there. My goal wasn't to add anything that would break the backs of a business. It was more to get a directory of businesses, so we know what's out there. I think it's easier to support businesses when you know what's in your community. So that was the reason behind that. I'd be fine with like $5 a business just to make sure that, again, they're registered so we know what's out there. And if it generated enough income, we could hire similar to kind of what Sarah Kaplan's doing, which is small business development, but our staff is so stretched thin that they're all doing a million different jobs. So it'd be nice to have someone specifically focused on working with the chamber and EDC and Visit Norman on making sure the city's doing their part to support businesses that are here, which I think will help with retention. In terms of the connection fees, we are asking voters for a water rate increase in April. It's incumbent upon us to look at everybody. You know, we are the only city in the state that has to put on the creation or raising of a public utility. So in the interest of fairness and equity, I think you have to look at connection fees. I don't know if we're going to raise them, but I know that some people aren't going to support a water rate increase for residents if we don't look at the business side of it as well in terms of development. I mean, every house that's built further taxes our utilities. So it makes sense, and I'm not opposed to ever looking at new things and having that kind of conversation. I think the status quo is fine if it works for everybody. It works for everything, it takes for all of our needs. And it obviously doesn't. So it's incumbent upon our elected officials to constantly look at how we're doing things so we can look at the best ways to improve them as well. So still not opposed to the registration fee. Wouldn't want it to be anything, again, that would hurt businesses, but I think the more information that we have about what's out in our community, the better we can support it.
Thank you. Larry?
There's no problem with registering businesses. If it's a matter of business registration fees that are $5, that's fine. That doesn't make any difference. But any fee that gets in the way of business working, connection fees have doubled, it seems, over the past few years. They're very expensive. How do they compare to more? Why would somebody build down here instead of more? That's the question I keep on asking, because I would like that competition to be fair. It wouldn't matter for anywhere else either. To register businesses, to help businesses. I personally, just philosophically, don't believe that municipal government has anything to do with business other than to remove obstacles. It's not our job to promote business. It's not our job to do anything with business, but to make it as fair as we can for businesses to operate and for businesses to keep going and grow. Anything that we do that will help businesses work better. I think of Jimmy Ellison at Ellison PNC, and he's losing half of his parking because we're widening the Porter. The Porter Avenue project is nice. It's apparently necessary. It's got all kinds of funding that goes with it. But it's hard to think of a business that started in 1954 now having their retail business in part, and they have to have traffic. So now we're limiting their parking spaces. How do we get through that? How do we provide public parking close enough to his building that somebody who's carrying a flat of onions or a sack of whatever that they buy there can get to their spot? That's pretty much it. Business fees, no.
Like there's not enough fees and regulations for businesses out there, let's try and work with businesses and make it easier to do business here. We're already collecting fees for things, and I don't think it's done us any good, and it certainly hasn't made businesses want to come here. So we need to definitely address that issue, and again, make it easier for the businesses to be here and improve their situation, incentivize them to be here, okay? Utility rates. Thank goodness we have the ability as citizens of Norman to decide whether or not we're going to increase utility rates. I like the fact that we should be able to vote on that. I think that's very important. Where it is a little sticky is where it's fair. The last time they tried to do this, Ward 5 was getting killed on the utility rates. And that's not the way it should be. It needs to be everybody, it needs to be equal for everybody. So it shouldn't favor one ward over another one. So I know we're going to vote on that, and it's important that people understand that the water issues are everybody's issues. Thank you.
I think when the police were defunded, that a lot of Norman residents just lost faith that, you know, we vote for something, is it going to be used for them? So when you've already lost the faith of the public because of defunding the police, that could be a huge obstacle to getting anything passed in the future. I also believe running for mayor shouldn't be an extracurricular job that you fit in after work like a yoga class. Larry and myself are retired, and Bob says that he's half retired. That is important. I'm 67. And I agree with Dr. Kish. The only problem, $5 is bad. In the beginning, it doesn't sound bad, but once the food system, where's that coming from? So, the $5, I'd be fine with if I'm a business, but I'd also be concerned if I was a business here, where's that going to go? You know, and also, if you want to attract businesses to Norman, first, make the people who already have business in Norman happy, like Nicole Kish. Like the businesses on East Main that are waking up the homeless sleeping in front of their store, defecating next to their business. And unsafe people go out and carry out the trash, or there be more employees to go to the call. Now, East Norman is a part of Norman. And all I have to say, as far as defunding the police, I'm glad they were there in 5 minutes when a man had a knife to my brother's throat. I really am. I don't think I would have wanted a counselor there. The Norman police have a crisis intervention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob?
I'm not opposed to the idea of a business fee along the lines of what Mayor Clark suggested. If it's a minimal fee, I think it can help us identify our local businesses, and it can also be a useful tool. One of the ironic things in our constructs here is that if I own a business that sells alcohol, if one of my employees sells alcohol to somebody underage, they're actually going to get a big fine. But if I'm encouraging it as a business, I don't necessarily get fined for that. Having a small fee for a business license allows the city to actually impose a punishment against businesses that aren't necessarily cooperative, not necessarily doing what they should do. So it's not really a bad concept in my opinion. I think that we can also use those fees the way we quite often do. We can use those fees, dedicate those fees to go back into the use of the business community, the benefit of the business community. So I don't find that to be a very controversial approach. As far as the water connection fees, we're limited to what we can charge somebody, and rightly so. I think we're limited to charging people what it costs the city. That's appropriate. I'd say if the development community, if the building development community wants us to charge less than what it costs, they should also be ready to make a commitment to some measurable and identifiable benefit that they're going to offer in exchange for a reduction in that particular cost.
Thank you.
So, city has been sued multiple times and lost lawsuits based on council action in regard to land use. What is your position on commercial and residential real estate development? Larry, we'll start with you.
I'm pro-development. It depends on where we are, though, when I say that. Because there are many times, particularly if we're out in Ward 5, that people don't want development. So it's a matter of managing those things. I personally think that we have to build and we have to develop the town as it goes. We have to take that growth and work through some of the problems. What happens if the lieutenant governor decides that he wants to run his new highway down Lake Thunderbird, and all of a sudden we've got all kinds of persons that are wanting to build fish shops and et cetera down there. That's part of growth. We have to be able to address those things. And we have to work with the people that have been there for a long time. There are quite a few families in this town that have been here since 1930 or before. And they have a right to have their nest as it should be here in Norman, and not be encumbered by all of a sudden we've got apartment buildings or we've got some kind of wastewater plant or other things that I've heard pop up in their background, in their backyard, excuse me. As we look at those things, if we work with the people to try and find the best solutions, there is a management to growth. We do it now through zoning and we do it through some other things, but how about some conversations between those that live in that area and those that want to develop that area to see if there's a common goal that we can get. Thank you.
So it's really unfortunate that the city has been sued so many times, but that's because people don't trust what's happening in our city government. They don't trust the city council. And we shouldn't have to pay for that. I think that's wrong to make the taxpayers pay for that. That shouldn't be occurring whatsoever. I believe in private property rights. If you want to develop on your property and it's zoned correctly, then you should be able to do that. But I saw what happened in Ward 5, where there was a gentleman who wanted to develop, make a little wedding venue. And he had to stop because he was doxxed so bad. They doxed him on Facebook, the leftists, I don't know what groups were doing it, but I can't believe that this guy who wanted to bring some revenue into Norman was stopped doing, they wouldn't allow him to do it. And they were horrible to him. They harassed his wife on Facebook. I don't think that's right. We need to allow people to develop on their private property. And I want to put trust back to the city council, city government. I think that's important. So suing just says, we don't trust you. We don't agree with what you've done. That's not the way it should be.
Really thought about a long history of Oklahoma. These are my great and they were Oklahoma sharecroppers in Jungle. My grandmother picked cotton. I want to take this time, I agree with Dr. Kish on what she said about the wedding movement. And I want to take this time because I kind of feel that there's going to be people out there who are in the BLM rallies that say, oh look, no surprise, all water. Why aren't you running? It cost me $75. Anybody could have run. So I mean, don't be complaining to city council and the mayor and Norman. If you could have run for mayor, you would have liked to have a boy run for mayor. I just want to say that we are here because we filed $75 to run for mayor. Want to run for city council, $50. Unless it goes up. My grandfather had a tin shop on Porter Street by that. It's in the 100 block of Porter. And he did large cameras for OU. My grandmother had a bakery in Norman. They lost it during World War II because of rationing. A lot of things you couldn't get. And it was not a good time to stay in the city. They bought a house over at 453 West Gray that because it was so business, my grandmother had to move when she was in the 70s. It was really hard. And this building, if anyone is curious, is built with Star Discount Groceries. It's not the same size, and I really like that it's taken up the whole Star Discount Groceries. Oh, did I go through?
Yes.
It's only my third time to speak to that's my defense.
I think that what you have with our lawsuits is a reflection of one of the bad habits that our city council has developed. Now, I think they've got 2 or 3 suits against them, and we don't know how those are going to work out. But I think that a pattern has developed over the years that our city council has allowed themselves to shoot from the hip. We see that in the second iteration of the public safety sales tax, that they didn't have to cover the details. Good enough is good enough. Going forward, we oversold the project instead of making sure the funding really reflected the vision. Our approach to stormwater has been ineffectual and probably plays into these problems that we have with passive developments. Our approach to homelessness has been very ad hoc, trying to catch up with the unanticipated consequences of a passionate or a compassionate decision instead of a forward-looking plan. And our police budget was handled in the same sort of ad hoc, careless way that is essentially shooting from the hip. we have in terms of development, we need to upgrade, update, and recognize the need for improvement in our 2025 plan to address the changes that we can rightly anticipate stormwater concerns and other concerns we're going to have on our developments, on the developments that have preliminary plats, and the changes that need to be brought to bear in a fair way that reflects people's property rights and that reflects the needs of the community well enough ahead of time so that we're not chasing everybody.
Thank you. I am definitely pro-growth as long as it's smart growth. I think adding more strip malls, all sorts of things that our community doesn't really need, isn't very helpful and doesn't actually respect our residents and contribute to our local economy in an impactful way. I'm a big fan of the mixed use. We're seeing that a lot in Center City. I think the Center City 4-based code is on the right track. We're obviously working on it again, but we've seen some pieces come to fruition that are beautiful. Not only do they, I think, improve our community and how it looks, but again, you've got the retail on the bottom and then housing above, so it addresses two things. More retail and hopefully diverse retail, but also a diversity in housing options in our community. I also think that our development needs to be as sustainable as humanly possible. So we've had a lot of initiatives that encourage that in terms of creating that kind of sustainable housing. I think pattern zoning has a lot of potential. I also like how we've utilized PUDs, planned unit development, but also simple planned unit developments to allow people that flexibility to do things that might not be in their current zoning. I think we need to have development that fills the gaps and is not just redundant in things that we already have in our community, but fills the gap while respecting our residents. I mean, a lot of you are out here supporting candidates, and I dig that. That's my favorite part about Norman, is we have residents that don't sit on the sidelines, but we get involved. And it's so easy to say shooting from the hip, but then when you're actually listening to your residents who show up and care, I hope you're listening, by the way. That's who you're representing. So I was excited to I think, always have our residents engaged. I also think that we need to, as I said earlier, support NEDC to make sure that they have the tools they need to recruit and retain the businesses that our residents want.
Okay, Nicole, this question's for you. Where to start? Everybody's mentioned this topic, so it's top of mind, I realize. So if elected mayor, how will you lead to address homelessness in Norman?
It's a very good question. Like I said, I got a phone call from a downtown Norman business owner today, and he has gotten a hold of the city council and said, hey, I've got this issue. I've got this is the real deal here. I've got people who are defecating in the front of my business and also in the back of it. And that's not the way it should be. And we don't have enforcement. We don't have anybody there. I thank the good Lord. We have a great Sheriff Chris Amson, who used to be on the police force. And he now has a great new CRU unit, the Community Response Unit. Deputies are going out and talking to the homeless people and trying to figure out what they need. And he told me Sheriff Amson told me one of the biggest things they're running into, some of them don't have IDs, and all of them want to be left alone. I'm sorry, but we'll not let you ruin our businesses just because you want to be left alone. That doesn't work like that. I'm a doctor, and I understand there's mental health issues that we have to deal with. We have to, and there's not a one-size-fits-all. So at least finding them a place to go, finding a solution for them. That's important to me. You can't just kick them out, but there's also a criminal element. And Sheriff Thompson said that criminal element is a big deal. And obviously last Thursday we figured that out pretty quickly. So we've got to do that. If you address the homeless issue, get your police department up and running and get them able to do their jobs, everything else will follow suit. So public safety is very special to me. It needs to be addressed, and I'm going to address it head on.
I would march on over to Riverwind Casino, ask them to accept responsibility for the the homelessness before. My brother was elder abused by multiple homeless people, such as who take advantage of the vulnerable, disabled, elderly, like senior citizen neighbor that works for us, my disabled senior citizen brother, and the list goes on. So, it would, people say, well, you can't make them. No, I can't. But it's the right thing to do, and it's the good neighborly thing to do, and that's what I would tell them. The 4 R's that's missing in America now are behaving reasonably, responsibly, rationally, by respecting the Northern police. And also, University of Oklahoma, the bus system that we do now. I would ask the University of Oklahoma to be a good neighbor and do a reciprocative effort to build that sports swim complex. I mean, they got lots of money now for the bus system and all that. I agree with Lynn Kelly, the buses are too big, they're empty a lot. And so, get smaller buses or vans. Just everything, it's like, where do you begin at such a mess? Well, maybe by hiring people that don't have jobs too, that can totally focus on being a mayor. Like Midway Bob said, he's half retired, and Murray's completely retired, and I'm fully retired. Because again, being mayor isn't something you do after work like we own the place.
Thank you.
The causes and impacts of homelessness are complex. And when I talked to the chief of police, he pointed out to me that the homeless community is composed of a number of different things. We have quite a number of people who are mentally ill. We have people who are chronically homeless. And we have people who've experienced recent catastrophe economically. It's going to be important for us to be able to triage that and determine who we can actually help and who will actually benefit from the kinds of help that we're able to give them. It's also going to be important for us to recognize who we can't help and where we need to call for assistance from our partners at the state and county. A few years ago, we would have thought that if somebody asked about homelessness, we would have thought that the issue was a matter of trying to help people who were not fed and not housed and not kept warm, to do all of those things for them. And we used to provide that simply through our, what we now call our continuum of care, but our nonprofits and our churches. We had a strong support for them from our business community and from individuals in our community, and that used to be sufficient. We've grown. We've experienced the kinds of growth that we hoped to have. And we have to come to terms with the fact that when you grow, you don't always get everything you want. Sometimes you have attendant problems that come with your growth. We should embrace the challenge to meet the problems that come from things that we wanted. I think we should support our coordinator, continue to support our continuum of care. And I also think we should commission a second report in a couple of years to see how we do based on, in comparison to the baseline report we just got. Thank you.
Thank you. So Norman's motto in terms of addressing homelessness is housing first. You can't get people to be successful in mental health and addiction recovery programs if they don't have a roof over their heads. So we do have a housing coordinator. We recently hired more staff for that. As the lead applicant for the housing and urban development, we are the head of the continuum of care, basically. So when we address homelessness in Norman, we're also addressing homelessness in all of Cleveland County. We work with over 40 different nonprofits to provide these services, but again, we don't have the housing for it. So I'm very excited that our council has been working to look at single room occupancy, which is like the first step out of homelessness. So again, they can work on finding that job, they can work on getting the help they need. But affordable housing is also creating opportunities for these families and these people living paycheck to paycheck to avoid homelessness. So we have to start with creating opportunities for housing. I think that, I'm very proud of my vote for creating the warming shelter, but it had moved from the library because now we're going to have the development center, which will hopefully help permitting and things like that. But where it's at right now is obviously not sustainable. And so we need to find a long-term solution to provide that valuable resource that doesn't pit citizens versus businesses. And so I'm excited to keep exploring that. We have a great opportunity with the Griffin land right now to maybe do something there. It's a huge swath of land that allows us to not only move things to a better area, but also partner with the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. I know that the county is also invested in this. Again, as the county seat, we need to be leveraging our partnerships with the county and the state to get as much done with this, stretching our dollars as smart as we possibly can. With our federal funds, we have earmarked $5 million to tackle this problem. Again, wanting to do it because it's the right thing to do isn't going to accomplish anything. We actually have to take action, and I'm proud to be at the council that's doing that.
I think the chief method of controlling homelessness is stop attracting people to come to Norman. These people we have here, Janet and I have worked at Mission Norman for 3 or 4 years. We've been in the jail for 7 years. I'm familiar with the population from that perspective. I've never been homeless myself or doing anything. We've been blessed in the fact that we always have meals and always have a place to sleep. If I look at things that are there and we start to put a warming shelter, or we start to put a facility, a feeding place, something in a neighborhood. Where Food for Friends is now is near the neighborhood where we started out. We lived over on Surrey Drive. And that neighborhood is harder to sell a house in because of its proximity to Food for Friends. We look at what happens to those neighborhoods. It's not just being kind-hearted to those that need help. It's also we have to be kind-hearted to our people. A lot of what goes on in this, I would agree, anybody that needs a hand and we can give them a hand, help them out, feed them, get them educated, give them shelter, keep them out of it, anything we can do. But only about a third of those people actually want help. We're trying, that's what Mission Norman's trying to do, is keep those people in food so they can stay in their house and work and do those kinds of things. There's a group of persons that need mental health care, and that's a county concern. It is not a municipal concern, in my opinion. We need to be working with the county and working with the state and doing those kinds of things that we can do to get that money in there. Thank you. I can go on for an hour.
All right, next question, Katie, this will start with you. How does the Chamber and Norman Next fit into your goals as a part of the City Council? How can the City of Norman, Chamber of Commerce, and Norman Next work together for economic vitality in Norman?
Solving the homeless issue. A big problem with homeless shelters is they don't let people come here that have substance abuse problems. So Saturday County has a 7-day limit for staying. And so ever since Riverland Casino started about 2006, started about 2007, my brother started being targeted by substance abuse and gambling. I don't hate the casino because I used to like to play pinball. You know how to control yourself. It's kind of this video game, if you look at it that way. You have a limit. But they need to be a good thing. Research says that casinos drop 50% of the homeless nearby a casino are drawn to that city, specifically at a casino. Therefore, Riverwind Casino needs to step up to the plate, be a good neighbor, and be involved in this movement for the homeless building in a partnership with county, city, state, and here. to build a homeless shelter, recovery, recycle center, donuts and plants that might would work. I think that also, people who are homeless with substance abuse are a danger to themselves and others, and the businesses are doing. Why aren't they receiving state funding? Well, I was looking at the laws on it, and it's pretty much your family has to do it, or the police. Do the police know that? Well, I think so, because the man that held the knife up to my brother's throat before he went to prison first went to Red Rock. So I think they know. I say round them all up and get them the help they need. It doesn't matter if they want it or not. You know, but they don't have the heart attack lay in the street.
Thank you.
Well, again, going back to my belief that polarity and disunity is what we confront the most right now, I would look for the Chamber and Norman Next to take on a role to develop some cohesion that's not there right now. We have a healthy business community, and it's well integrated with our residential community, but quite often our narrative would lead you to believe otherwise. I'd like to see the focus of the Chamber of Commerce shift toward our shared interests, toward emphasizing our shared interests, to making sure that the things that they propose for business growth also have identifiable and measurable expectations of benefit, not just in extra revenue, which is a very broad thing, but in actual identifiable benefits for a residential community to the people that are already here. I think that's a key for us to start working together as a community to recognize each other's shared interests. And I'd like to see the Chamber help me reframe our narrative and help the rest of the community see that the things that benefit business can in fact be directly beneficial to the citizens that are here, and that there's a good reason to be solidly behind our business community, more than just the tradition, more than just the need for extra sales tax dollars, but because we have a business community that is invested in the community as well as in their bank accounts.
Well, first I'd like to commend Norman Next on, you guys really do have momentum right now. It's a different Norman Next than it was when I joined, and I'd love to see you keep that up. I've appreciated your recruitment efforts, not just with age, obviously, but with industry. And I think it's been nice and diverse, because not only are you helping people build relationships that lend themselves to roots, you're encouraging leadership. I have appointed many Norman Next members to boards and commissions because you simply apply. and I appreciate the diversity of thought on our city boards and commissions. So excited to see that develop, and again, would like to see this intern Norman really take off. We've got the flagship university of the state. Why not make more of that? I also think that we need to build relationships with the people, not just the businesses. You know, the council often gets accused of being polarizing. Well, I'm going to tell you the chamber can be quite polarizing at times. And I think you know that as much as I do. We just need to get out of our echo chambers and build relationships with other people. I think a diversity committee would be great. Not just a small business committee or a women's leadership committee, but one that's attractive to minority business owners, veteran owners, and know that they're supported here in our community. So when they're looking for a place to start their business, you know, they already love the community, they know that the chamber is going to support them, that they don't have to be cut from the same cloth as the typical chamber member. So I think that's going to be huge. I'd love to see that happen. And I know it can be difficult to have things like the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which I now understand is the Community Development Strategic Plan. See what you did there. Because we live in a town full of experts. That is the downside to a university. So there's always someone, I think, criticizing your efforts, even though your professional experience has told you it's the right way to go. But with those personal relationships, I think we'll do a better job of communicating your vision and getting residents on board to support you.
a lot of what, the way I see municipal government is it takes care of the basic things that have to happen in a city. Roads, sewers, trash, police and fire, those kinds of activities. The chamber takes care of the business side. It should be that the chamber is conversing with the council to be able to say, we want this, or we think this, and have that dialogue going on a basis. A lot of this stuff changes on a dime. There's just very few things that are ideas that have really lasted for 50 years when we think about business opportunities and things. Things have changed. It just, you don't buy Ray Ryder BB guns anymore for your kids at Christmas time. It's just not done anymore. You just have to look at these things. As the role difference is that the council needs to be looking or listening to what the chamber is telling us and making things easier for them to do that idea, to be able to put these kinds of activities out there. Changing streets, Gray Street going the wrong way, downtown and doing things like that. The city can do that. Those are business experiments. They had just changed it in '78 when we got here, and everybody was confused. Now we're going back. So there's a cycle somewhere in there. We have to look at those. What can we do with these? What can we do with access? What can we do working with ODOT to bring more people in more easily to an arena or an event center or something else? That's, I think, our municipal government's role in that. Thank you.
I've already told you how wonderful I think this building is and what you guys, I think, potentially could do here. The reason I am a chamber member is because I went to an after-hours event that they had arranged at the Trails. And that's the only reason why I am a chamber member, because I met the people there. They said, hi, you know, here's what we're doing, and here's our plan. I think that's really important. We need to build more interpersonal relationships. I think that is a very good thing for business here. If you are a business and you want to come to Norman, I want Scott Martin to be able to call me and go, hey, we've got this optometrist who wants to come to Norman. Do you mind sitting down with them? Come down here and let's chat. I think those kind of relationships mean a lot. And we have to be able to work with our city council. If you can't work with your city council and they make you feel unwelcome to have a business here, that means a lot. And that's going to change when I become mayor. I am a businesswoman. I understand what it's like to run a business. And that those interpersonal relationships mean a lot to me. And I'm so glad that we have the opportunity to do that here. And I want to thank you guys again for doing all that and for having all of this and us being able to do that. And by the way, Trey Young grew up across the street from me. And I am so proud that his mom and dad have remained here and are building something in this community. I'm so proud of that, and I'm so proud to recognize that. These are good people. We need more people like that to do more in this city.
Thank you. We have reached our time for closing statements. And we're going to start with you. So we're going to start with you for our closing statements, 1 minute each. From you, and we'll go down the road here. So, Bob, you're recognized for a minute for a closing statement.
When I moved here 40 years ago, Norman was a very cool place, and a place that was, it was okay to be conservative, it was okay to be a liberal, we all got along, and that was one of the hallmarks of Norman. The office of mayor is not an ideological battleground, although the current newspapers notwithstanding. It's not intended to be a place where we play out our ideological agendas. We live and work and play in Norman. It's our city and it's our challenge, our future. And in order for us to be able to work together on it, we have to recognize the importance of nonpartisanship. We don't elect a mayor to make our town red or blue. We elect a mayor to make our city council more effective in conveying the will of the people. So I invite you to break a bad habit step away from the folks who are obviously identified with their political parties. Come over to the bright side.
Thank you, and I want to thank the Chamber for hosting tonight, and Norman next. I always appreciate the opportunity to hear from my neighbors up here, and also to get to meet all of you. I want to thank everyone up here for running. It's an experience, isn't it? I'm sure everyone can laugh about that now, but it takes people to get out and say they're up for it, and to give you a choice. And thanks to all of you for being here, for supporting whatever candidate you're supporting, and those watching at home. As I touched on earlier, this is what's great about Norman. It's the people. And to think that we've never disagreed before is delusional, because this is Norman, all right? I mean, that's okay. We have bounced back, we have thrived, we continue to grow. Our best days are ahead. So continue to stay engaged, whoever you support. Don't let this be a roller coaster anymore. Let's stay up here, let's keep voting, let's keep watching, let's keep participating, because that is what makes Norman great. So again, thank you for the opportunity.
I would like to be a mayor who pursues excellence. That's part of what the arena is about. We are looking for the best solution we think that we can find to be able to give to the people, to give them the best Norman that we can find. I agree that the diversity just absolutely brings a thrill to being able to discuss anything in Norman. You can disagree with yourself in the same second. It's just as easy to do. But I have the skills to work with groups of people. That arena is not my idea. That arena is a group of people's ideas. There are other things that I've done, particularly in the service. I was a command master chief. That is 0.1% of the enlisted persons in the Navy can become a command master chief and have the education to be able to do it. I have a degree in business. I have been a business owner in Norman. I understand a lot of the things that go on. I've lived in the West, and I've lived in the East. I've done both sides of this and love Norman for it. Thank you.
I want to thank the Chamber and everybody who's here, Scott, and everybody who's here. Thanks for all of you who are actually here, and then all of you who are watching at home. Listen, Norman is at a crossroads. This is a pivotal moment for us, all right? Are we going to keep going down this road? Are we going to keep on defunding our police department? Our homelessness is up 100%. And violent crimes are up, guys. They're up 12%. Or are we going to choose a different path? Get back to the town that we can walk downtown and enjoy and attract businesses. I believe in that. In the 1980s, New York City, Mayor Giuliani went in and cleaned that city up. For every 1% of crime that went down, 1% of the economy increased. I'm uniquely qualified for this job. I'm a doctor. This is a never-ending pandemic, so we could use some science here. I'm a small businesswoman, and I appreciate that type of thing. I know a thing or two about getting people to collaborate and making decisions, and I'm good at it, and I do it every day. And so it's time to decide, allow the criminals and the homeless to take over the city, or vote for a business owner who will fix our public safety and attract new business development. Vote for me. Have a great day.
Thank you. Hey, you wrap us up with a minute for a closing statement.
Okay, I have wondered if, like OSU extension environment, if property would be cheaper for a homeless shelter, if it's possible to have it in another city besides Norman. I don't know if that is or not, but I do know that there are dangers to self and others, and it seems like state committal should work on that. Substance abuse is a leading mental illness in the United States. Also, I have this mask on because Omicron is a fastest spreading virus since the measles before the vaccine, and also because my brother passed of COVID-19 at 67 the day after Christmas 2020. So this is in memory of him and the millions that have passed away. That said, y'all wear face masks and care for them properly. I'm thinking maybe you infect yourself. Because the two people I know, besides my brother, did not live. One was not a business owner, and the other one would stuff his face mask in his pocket like a lot of children do. So, is that over?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. As we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody of a few things. Early voting is February the 3rd and the 4th, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. You can find more information about the election forthcoming at normanpublicist.com. I encourage you all to go there. And lastly, if you're not going to vote early, make sure you get out to vote on February the 8th. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you so much for our candidates.
I want to say one thing else, even if it's not, with the red program,